This book is entitled Conviction by Kelly Loy Gilbert for First Chapter Friday. And in this case, I was really connected because one of the main characters is named Braden, and my son is named Braden. So I always like to, everybody kind of likes to read books that have characters' names that you're accustomed to. This is a finalist for a William C. Morris Debut Award. And it is a book where you kind of have to make a decision on what you think is right and what is wrong. So I'm going to read the prologue on this for First Chapter Friday, Conviction by Kelly Loy Gibert. The San Francisco Giants took the St. Louis Cardinals 8-3 in a Saturday game at AT&T Park 10 years ago. And that was the last time my family, my dad, my older brother Trey, and me all went to a game together. I was in first grade then, and that was before I knew too much about the different ways your life can fall apart. But still, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that most of what I believe now is because of what happened that day between me and God. The game was the first time in forever that the three of us had done anything as a family. And it was a big deal to me because the way you hear how other families are into things like Christmas or relatives or whatever, baseball's always been the thing my family's had. I'm a pitcher. I'm expected to go a first-round draft pick when I graduate next year. And back then, baseball was my whole life already. I've been lying awake in bed thinking about the game for weeks beforehand. And when the night before finally came, I knelt on my bedroom carpet and rested my forehead on the bed and asked God to give me some kind of sign. I know it's not like if you come up with a magic combination of words to pray, he'll spit out whatever crap you ask him to, like your own personal vending machine. But all week, I put my best into my pitching, and I'd been extra careful to obey my dad. And so this was the deal I made with God. If he would give me some unmistakable sign, one that could only come from him, then I would take it as a promise that everything would be all right between my dad and Trey. It's about 2.5 hours west to San Francisco from Ornette, where we live in Central Valley, along flat roads where the tulle fog rises from the ground and pools at the bottom of the valley against the foothills, a place that back then, I always thought was so safe. We drove out through the country club by our house and past the vineyards and the huge ranch homes in the hills, past one of the giant billboards with my dad's face on it in the hills, and and as orchards of almond trees flickered by outside the windows, I kept watch for what might be my sign. Trey was graduating from high school that year, and the whole drive to San Francisco, my dad was teasing him about proposing to his girlfriend, Emily. Well, half teasing because my dad always wanted to get him to get married. He said more than once that she was Trey's biggest accomplishment in life. You want a crazy way to propose? He said when we were passing through La Brea. He locked the car's doors and sped up. La Brea is our rival, and every year when we go there to play, we might as well be crossing an invisible border into some third world country. Small faded homes and run-down apartments all crammed together with barred windows, dirt yards with chain-link fences, and vicious-looking pit bulls. A 24-hour bail bond place, and we used to stop in La Brea once in a while to eat at this place my dad liked. But then he found out the owners were illegals, and we quit going. My dad's lived there long enough to remember when La Brea was still a safe, quiet farming town, with the same kind of people you'd find in Ornette. Families who've been around for generations. And he's always going on about how now La Brea is proof that we're letting the country fall apart. All I know is you couldn't pay me to walk around there after dark. This one's in the Bible. Swear to God. Go bring 'em. Dad's 100 Philistine foreskins. That's what King David said when he wanted King Saul's daughter as a wife. That's what Saul made him do, except when David got 200, he winked at me in the rearview mirror and turned his eyes from the road to grin at Trey. Michael must have been a really looker, huh? In the passage seat, Trey adjusted the headphones he was wearing. He stared out the window, and when the mounting silence in the car felt too thick to breathe through, I said brightly, "Ha! Good one, Dad. Good advice." The look my dad gave me in the rearview mirror was half warming, half plea. Don't turn out like your brother. Trey was always his cautionary tale about what had happened if you threw away your potential. If you were lazy and didn't have integrity in how you did things. It hadn't been a great couple of months at home, but this time, all he said to Trey was, "You'll regret if you don't lock her down before you leave for college." He pressed on the word college like a bruise. He wasn't happy Trey was going to a school with no baseball team and a reputation for smoking pot. "I mean it," he added. "I'm just trying to help." Trey tilted his head back against their headrest and closed his eyes like he was trying to sleep. Back then, before New York and before his restaurant, Trey was a catcher. He was good, too, which made it worse that he was never willing to give the game very much of himself. It killed my dad the way Trey just never cared. We were at the park early so we could watch batting practice before the game. We bought hot dogs for all of us and a pretzel for me and a beer for Dad. And on the way down to the field level, my dad took us the long way around the concourse to point out the retired jersey numbers on display. Trey made it a point to look as bored as possible, and my dad, who'd been talking about the game for weeks, was disappointed. He's always liked stuff like that, and I have too. Baseball's nothing if not proof of the way history matters to you. That's why the stars get so specific. Like a guy's batting average with 2 men on base, a guy's pitching record against a left-handed hitter, in the games at home when the team's up by 3 runs or more. That kind of thing. You're always playing against the past. I brought my glove just in case, and when we made our way down the stadium steps behind home plate, I got that anxious, rattling feeling in my heart. I still get sometimes when I take the mound before an important game, and just like that, I knew what I was supposed to ask for. That I would catch a foul ball today at the park. That would be my sign from God. Where our seats were in right field, you wouldn't get foul balls, so it would have to be now during batting practice. I drifted away a few steps from Trey and my dad and angled myself behind the dugout, where the protective fence dropped off. The best place to catch a ball. We stood there a while watching the balls fly through across the field, and I was nervous. My hand was sweaty inside my glove, and to distract myself, I asked Trey, "Who's your favorite player?" "My favorite?" Trey considered it like he figured I deserved some kind of actual, thoughtful answer. I know there's a lot you could say against my brother, but back then he was always nice, like that with me. "Probably Hummer." "Hummer?" My dad repeated. "Trey, you're killing me. Stab me in the heart, why don't you? That kid looks like a fairy, and he plays like a humpbacked whale who swallowed a whole cow." I giggled, and my dad wrapped his arm around me. "The heck do you know about Hummer?" "I always liked him," Trey said. "Maybe I'll get a jersey." My dad snorted. "Be a cold day in hell before I buy that for you." He's always said you should never wear a jersey with another guy's name on it because it's weak and unambitious to only want to be as good as someone else who's already done it. Trey knew that, obviously. He said it just to get my dad. I agreed. It's weird to wear someone else's name across your back, but I also felt like if you were going to, you might as well pick someone as terrible as Hummer, because then you know you're still better. "I'll buy one myself then," Trey said. Then he added, pretending casually, "Who needs your money?" I tensed, but this time all my dad was said, "Hummer, huh, Trey? That's just embarrassing." Trey considered that, started to say something, and then changed his mind. "Yeah, well, Braden could probably as well." My dad had just bit into his hot dog and spit it out into his cup of beer because that made him laugh, and I felt better then. He held out his spit and beer to Trey, the half-chewed hunk of hot dog at the bottom. "Here, drink this. It's yours now. You earned it." "No, you did that. You drink it," Trey said. But he started up the stairs and came back a few minutes later with another beer for my dad and no Hummer jersey. I guess he didn't get carded. Trey always looked older, and anyway, people always kind of go along with that what he says. "You didn't have to," my dad said. "Here, I'll pay you back." Trey waved off the bill my dad tried to give him, and then my dad looked down at me and squeezed my shoulder. "So how about you, B? Tell me that I've raised at least you right. Who's your favorite player?" I knew it just wasn't any question. It was a test. So he'd take it as evidence that I was or wasn't going to be like Trey. So I thought a little while and didn't count it exactly because it had been years since he played. But I said, "You." It caught him by surprise, but it also made him happy, just like I'd known it would. And the way he squeezed my shoulder made me feel like I was making a step closer to getting my sign from God. We stood waiting as the balls rained again down on the field, and there were a few dozen close calls. I had my glove ready each time, and my heart kept picking up as I flashed forward to what would feel like to know God had personally promised something to me. But then each time the ball would drift back 20 rows, or I'd fall down to the field, and each time I felt my faith eroding. When batting practice ended, I had 2 autographs Trey had gotten for me, but no foul balls. The game started, my dad settled down into the seat to talk it through me. Maybe it's partly all the years on the radio, but when it comes to baseball, he can turn it into something no one else can, like he's stripping tarnish off an old mirror layer by layer. So you slowly start to see everything reflected back at you, and you start to see yourself in your own place in it. I was distracted that day as he went over the different pitches and plays, quizzing me occasionally and acting proud. He wanted me to pay attention to baseball's unwritten code of honor, making sure I could tell whether everyone was doing the right thing at all times. In the fourth inning, the Cardinals' second baseman, who just hit a ground rule double, cut to the second base across the pitcher's mound, and because I was too absorbed wondering what I'd done wrong with God, why he ignored my prayer, I noticed only when my dad stiffened and sucked in his breath. "You see that?" he said. "What did he do wrong there?" I knew the answer. It's pure, calculated disrespect for anyone but the pitcher to set foot on the mound. But before I could say it, Trey said, "Relax, Braden. It's just a game." And the disgust and disappointment that crossed my dad's face was so sharp, it made me think I'd been wrong. That after all, this was my sign that things would never be all right. "A game?" my dad said scathingly, loud enough to let the people around us look. "That's all this is to you? You don't give a fig what I've tried to teach you all your life about integrity. Is that it? You think this is nothing more than 18 guys batting a ball around with a stick?" Trey was going to say something unfixable. I knew he was. And I knew he had been close to doing it for a while, for months maybe. And I was certain that God had failed me. I was just a kid, but I knew already sometimes you can feel the slipping point just before it happens, the vast, awful stretch of possibility that'll hang there, waiting to haunt you forever once it's past. But then, before Trey could speak, everyone around us jumped to their feet and started yelling, and the three of us broke that ugly triangle we were caught in and looked up. And then it happened. The ball, co-hummer, had just hit, flew out toward where we were sitting in the right field, and Trey stopped short of whatever he was going to say. On pure instinct, I jammed my glove on my hand. And then the ball was coming right to me, and I reached up and caught it and landed hard and stinging against my palm in a way that could only be my sign from God. There's a lot that's magic about baseball. I don't mean that as a superstition or a coincidence or luck, because more than anything, baseball is mechanics and effort and hard work. Even in first grade, I knew that. Even then, my life was shaped and measured in metrics and repetitions and stats. But there's magic in the way it comes together and in the way it makes you who you are. There's magic in the way that when you're good enough, you can stand on a mountain in front of 40,000 people who've watched and lived your past with you and prove you earned the right to be there. This is the thing that's it about most magic of all, that it opens for a stage for God to give you moments like this, that you can go watch a game with your dad and your brother and have a night together that winds up being close to perfect as anything in your life has come, that it can give you something to hold on to when you need it most, like when you're 6 and in church and on Mother's Day and all the kids are told to stand up and give their moms a hug and you try to pretend you're not there, or when you're 7 and for reasons you've still never understood, your brother drops out of college and quits talking to your dad altogether and stops coming home, or when you're 16 and without warning, before you even understand what's happening, your dad, the best man you've known and the best person who've taught you right from wrong, is arrested at gunpoint on the street outside your house.